College Football Inquirer with Ross Dellenger and Steven Godfrey. I am Andy Staples. And gentlemen, the coaching carousel is open for business. Your phones have been buzzing. It has been agents. Hey, have you got my guy on your hot board? That is how things work right now. Florida is open. Penn State is open. Arkansas is open. Oklahoma State is open. Help me out here, guys. There's a lot of openings. UAB is open. UCLA is open.
UCLA, yeah. Arkansas.
Yeah, said that one. What are we missing? Am I missing one?
Colorado State.
Colorado State.
Let me do the hipster ones. Oregon State.
Only $114 million spent so far in buyout only, right?
I am so glad you added that up, Ross Dellenger, because it is going to be the enduring theme of this coaching carousel. Part of it, I think, is because schools last year were a little bit reluctant to fire their coaches because they weren't sure how much they were going to have to spend on rev share, how the money was going to flow. And this year, it's like, we waited. Now we can't wait, and we're panicking. We didn't talk about this as much the other day because we weren't sure what was going to happen. But the Florida State situation, there was news on Monday because Michael Alford, their AD, came out with a statement. And if I were to translate the statement from AD to English, it would be, I'm not firing Mike Norvell today, but don't worry, fans, I'm probably firing Mike Norvell sometime soon.
Wasn't that just a giant kind of hold your powder? Please don't storm the gates. And also, I don't want you to annoy my secretary for 6 weeks. That's what that was, right?
That is probably what he said. There was two different statements on Monday. There was that one, and then Chris McIntosh at Wisconsin saying, we intend to support Luke Fickell. And, we're actually going to spend money on players now, which if I were to have a press conference with Chris McIntosh afterward, I would probably ask him, and why weren't you doing this before? And why should you be employed? Because you'd be the person responsible for not paying enough for players before.
That one I believed wholeheartedly because that is the most library school ass press conference or statement I've seen in a while. That represents the beautiful naivete of the student athletes of the Big Ten, where it was a guy put out a statement. By the way, Luke Fickell is, I would say, like, empirically a good football coach. He knows what he's doing, and he doesn't have the personnel. Some of that is, I guess, his fault. We can maybe suss that out in the offseason.
It's not his fault if they didn't give him the resources. And this has been my question with Wisconsin all along, is a chicken-egg situation. Did they give him the resources, and he messed it up, or did they not give him the resources, and this is the best roster he can put together?
You never heard Wisconsin up in the top in the NIL spending.
No.
Ever.
No.
You never did.
That means that they got rid of this lineage that they had, the Alvarez lineage of coaches, right? And they went out and they did get a really good, like, they got one of the best, kind of the Jon Sumrall of his class. Luke Fickell was a great hire. I still
that's
think
a good point. That's a good comparison. He was a hot guy.
And then they did,
it's a bit of an insult to Luke Fickell, who took Cincinnati to the 4-team playoff.
Yes, but then they did literally nothing to modernize after that. Or were they that naive that they thought we need ball coach, go coach? Is that it? Was that the Wisconsin logic? While everyone else in the country, schools like Duke and Indiana, started paying players, Wisconsin's like, nah, it's fine. We just didn't need to run Paul Chryst's offense anymore. What?
It's fascinating to me, and it leads me to believe that Luke Fickell's probably going to keep his job. I'm not sure if Chris McIntosh is going to keep his, because that is, I mean, it's basically you saying the quiet part out loud and admitting you've been terrible at your job.
From the folks I talked to, that was in the last 24 hours, the folks I talked to feel like Fickell will get the benefit of the doubt in at least a cycle of good NIL.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. You know, the one thing we didn't see in the Florida State statement was anything about supplying more resources, because they've already got it all.
Buddy, they're taxed out.
They have supported Mike Norvell
adequately. All.
Very different situation.
$500 million. We talked about that a few weeks ago, and I wrote a story about them and how much they've spent this offseason in the facilities. I mean, they've got it all. In fact, today, or yesterday, the football team moved into the new football facility, their $140 million
There were
facility.
Donors, gentlemen, who did not want Mike Norvell to set foot in that facility.
Yeah, there was a lot of intense dialogue Sunday.
That's a good way to say it, Ross.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and,
I like that.
There was a lot. And then obviously that sort of seeped out on Andy's platform specifically. And I think that probably triggered the statement of, hold on, we're not doing anything right now.
Right. But they were having very serious discussions. And it was a case of, can we get this money together? Mike Norvell's buyout is actually very interesting. It's about $55 million.
It's mitigated too.
But it is mitigated. That's the magic word.
Yeah.
And Mike Norvell will get another job. So you're probably talking about Mike Norvell getting a $3 million to $4 million a year head coaching job. This is the same conversation we had about James Franklin, who will get a higher paying head coaching job. And it will lessen the severity of that buyout. That buyout becomes somewhat manageable. Now,
just a budget line, as they say.
A line on, exactly. If we start talking about Mark Stoops or Brian Kelly, if those become in play, no mitigation there. No mitigation for Billy Napier. Billy Napier gets his $20 million bucks and he's good to go. So he gets $10 million up front. Billy Napier just fired by Florida on Sunday, and $10 million over the next, whatever the life of the contract was. I think it was 3 more years. So he is set to go get another job and double dip if he would like. But these jobs are now open, and we got to talk about who gets them, and we got to talk about what schools want in their next coach. And I think it's different for every school, but Florida, the number one candidate is very obvious. They would like to hire Lane Kiffin, but Lane Kiffin has a really good job already.
He might be playing deep into January. I don't know.
January-ish, I feel like. We talked a little bit about
January
this on Sunday. January adjacent. Here's the key if you're a Florida fan. January enough to still hit that transfer portal window after a valiant first round loss.
January 2nd.
Probably be where they would fall right now in the prognostication if you gave them the benefit of the doubt, assuming they beat Oklahoma. They'd probably fall not in the SEC championship first round. Maybe they get bumped off by a better Big Ten team, hypothetically. And if you're Florida, you can still make the hire and get the entire efficiency of the offseason done. So I have a question. Do we feel like you brought something up, Andy, because we have automatically slotted James Franklin in for another job based on his age, based on the aggressive positioning he did over the weekend, his agency
that's why I keep doing it, because of his interview on Game Day, because he made very clear he wants to coach.
You mentioned Mike Norvell, and I thought, like, man, if Silverfield were to and I'm going to do a hypothetical here. This is just hypothetical. This is one of those just hypothetical. Please don't aggravate
I had this conversation with somebody yesterday. Okay. Let's go.
So let's say Ryan Silverfield catches a Missouri or something like that because Eli goes somewhere else. Mike Norvell would be your absolute best possible hire at a place like Memphis. I'm just using this as an example. But then
you mean because he was a really good coach at Memphis before?
Yeah. So, but this is what got me thinking. We don't cover the NFL on this show, and none of us really have an NFL background. But the NFL has suffered for decades of this retread.
Yes,
and it's born out of a logic that there's so much money at stake that people who are trained for the job will be given the benefit of the doubt over someone who has not ever held that position, regardless of their record. Right? I'm literally wearing a Falcon shirt, and Raheem Morris was a sub 500 head coach who got a second chance. I wonder if that's going to bleed into the collegiate ranks now, because these people who are making $1 billion. Well, this is what I'm saying. It's happened before.
Didn't Deion Sanders replace Carl Durrell?
I think it's going to start happening more. I think now we're going to start trading guys out.
Let me push back on the way you're framing this, though. If Mike Norvell winds up as Memphis' head coach, it's not because he's a retread. It's because he got Peter principled, and he goes back to the level that he was really good at.
Yeah, I would probably confirm that if Memphis wasn't arguably the best G5 or one of the best G5 jobs. At Memphis, you're still competing for a playoff spot.
Because he made it that.
Well, he's one of the guys who did, yeah.
All right, so wait, hold on. Let's talk about this pool of candidates. Maybe not in relation to all the open jobs, but just who are the pool of candidates? And let's start at the group of 5 level, right? I mean, Silverfield's probably in there, right? We know Sumrall. We know Golesh at South Florida.
Yeah.
Who else may be in the group of?
Well, let's talk about who these guys are and where they might fit, because I think the really hardcore fans know exactly who Jon Sumrall is, know exactly who Ryan Silverfield is, know who Alex Golesh is, but the more general fan might not. So let's start with Jon Sumrall, who is kind of the hottest name in the group of 5, has had multiple Power 5 or Power 4 opportunities already, was going to be Kentucky's head coach if Texas A&M hired Mark Stoops, but that didn't happen. So Jon Sumrall is a former Kentucky linebacker. He has worked at Kentucky. He's worked at Ole Miss. He was the head coach at Troy and won the Sun Belt twice there. He is now at Tulane. They played for the American Championship last year. They are really good again this year.
Jon Sumrall, right? He's in his 4th season as a head coach. He's never won fewer than 9 games. 12 wins, 11 wins, 9 wins.
It's
2
very,
conference championships and a division title as well.
Kind of feels like Urban Meyer at Bowling Green and then Utah.
Yeah.
If you had to, but he's
and
a
like
defensive
Troy's
guy.
not like an easy G5 job either.
Troy, the reason why he gets flowers for Troy is not easy, but there is a blueprint. If you are extremely disciplined at Troy, Neil Brown rebuilt that blueprint, and Sumrall, there's a tree going on, including the current staff of Troy assistants who know how to work less into more. And that's very appealing when you go to the high end of the G5 at a place like Tulane, which is giving you money, but definitely has certain restrictions and considerations. His blueprint, when you combine those things that I just said with the working at 2 different SEC staffs, was known as a good recruiter, aggressive, understands how to do the fundraising, works pretty well with the media. I've had great conversations with him. I think you guys have talked to him as well. Yeah. He becomes the most complete candidate. The Alabama-ness of it kind of makes it feel like he's the de facto choice at Auburn.
He's also from Alabama.
And he's originally from Alabama. And he's like, as far as fit, that guy's not moving out of the South, I wouldn't think.
No, he would never need to.
It's interesting because I'm sure people are like, well, Florida just opened. Here's the thing, and this is something that drives me crazy about coaching searches. Florida's not going to go after a Group of 5 head coach at all, and specifically not a Group of 5 head coach from a school in Louisiana, because the last guy they hired was a Group of 5 head coach from Louisiana. Now, Jon Sumrall and Billy Napier could not be more different. There's nothing resembling anything with the two of them, but because coaching search logic is usually stupid, Jon Sumrall would not be a candidate at Florida. He would be a very strong candidate at Auburn. He's a very strong candidate at Arkansas. If Lane Kiffin were to leave,
also
Florida State, if it opened. If Lane Kiffin were to leave Ole Miss, he would be probably the number 1 candidate at Ole Miss.
He would. Yes.
If Kentucky opens, he's the number 1 candidate at Kentucky.
They would love to have him, but they won't get him. Yeah.
He's the hot guy. And then everybody, I think, at least in the G5 sort of level is behind him, right? South Florida,
absolutely,
Golesh and
Golesh has maybe it's my backyard up here in Nashville. Golesh is revered amongst Tennessee fans
because he was Tennessee's OC when they revived the program.
But he was also, they went 11-2, beat Alabama, all that.
In that locker room, he kind of had the reputation of being the guy in terms of the sort of the character and the sort of nucleus as Heupel kind of had to evolve. I think when you come out of the G5 as a head coach, you sort of really learn to be a CEO and all the other sort of trappings of being an SEC head coach. Golesh sort of was the manager, I was going to say managing editor because we're all journalism nerds, but he was sort of the guy in the bullpen every day talking to the players and like really built that culture. Again, just want to point out. And
you've seen that at USF because he takes over USF a couple of years ago. This is his 3rd year there. USF is a hard job. It's funny because coaches look at it from the outside and think it's an easy job and then get it and run away screaming because it is very difficult to win there. He went 7-6 his first 2 seasons, including a year where Byron Brown, his quarterback, was injured for a lot of the year. That was last year. Byron Brown has been healthy this year. They have beaten Florida. They have 1 loss. It is to Miami, and they play Memphis this week. And the winner of this game has the inside track on the American Championship.
Yeah, what was so impressive with his 3 seasons there. Every season, I think they have taken a blue blood power conference program into the 4th quarter. Maybe twice.
Alabama
in a
twice.
Season. Alabama twice, Miami maybe once, and then of course they beat Florida this past year.
The Miami game was competitive last year, and Miami broke it open in the 4th quarter. This year, the Miami game was not competitive, but they beat Florida.
Right. So, his team seemed to play. He's obviously got talent, and they do have a decent NIL pool there. The last couple of years, they've really kind of stepped it up, and so they've mined the portal. But they play hard and against really good competition, and that is something I'm sure a lot of ADs are taking notice. Another G5 guy that would be in the candidate pool is out in Las Vegas, who took his first loss
Dan Mullen?
this past year.
Can we call him a G5 guy since he was? Yeah, he's the best coach in the history of your Power 4 alma mater, Ross.
That's right. Yeah.
And he coached at my alma mater and was really good for a while until the last year when the wheels fell off.
Yeah.
So Dan Mullen at UNLV. And I think there's a right level for Dan Mullen. And I think it is in the ACC or in a mid-tier SEC or Big Ten program where you're not expected to win the national title, but you were expected to be competitive and to punch above your weight, he's perfect for that. I mean, look at Mississippi State under Dan Mullen, punching above its weight every single year. He changed the expectations completely at Mississippi State.
UCLA.
Yep.
Put Dan Mullen.
I don't
Put
see
Dan
him
Mullen in
wanting
that culture.
I don't see him wanting to live in Westwood.
Well, also,
Really?
he did the thing about the next year I'm going to be in UNLV. He did that whole thing, press conference thing. I don't know what to think about that.
I mean, that I don't know. That felt like kind of just Dan.
Yeah. I don't know where he would fit. UCLA, that's kind of an odd one.
I don't think he fits in UCLA.
What
Why?
about
because it's LA
what about
or because of
Stillwater?
the structure?
What about Stillwater?
No.
Actually, yes. I think
Stillwater
would be the right.
Yes.
That would be the right spot, or the right type of spot.
I think Stillwater wants to. Kentucky, yes. I think Stillwater would want to go younger and more dynamic and sort of create that second Gundy without the.
You want to talk about
problems.
Eric Morris then? Okay, let's talk about Eric Morris.
Or Zach Robinson, someone like that. I think Eric Morris would be a perfect move up, but I think there's a lot of people out there. There's more people on the tree that fit in the young, dynamic recruiter, understands portal, understands NIL for Oklahoma State than I think maybe any of these jobs right now because of the Texas air raid. There's a lot of branches right now that would fit
Eric
in
Morris
Stillwater.
is the head coach at North Texas, for those who don't know. Eric Morris was the head coach in Incarnate Word who brought Cam Ward there. He then took Cam Ward with him to Washington State as the offensive coordinator. While the offensive coordinator at Washington State, Eric Morris found a guy in Little Elm, Texas named John Mateer and signed him to Washington State. Morris then went to North Texas as the head coach. He has brought Drew Mestemaker on board as the QB, who is a great QB who didn't start games in high school.
Never started.
Kyle Trask. Yeah.
Never started a game in high school. Yeah.
And so Eric Morris has North Texas playing really well. They had a bad defense last year. He went and fixed that by hiring Skylar Cassidy from Sam Houston State. Eric Morris probably brings Skylar Cassidy and the defense, and it probably brings Drew Mestemaker wherever he goes. It's ready-made. It's turnkey. If you watch Kurt Cignetti in Indiana, you're hoping for a version of that. Yeah, maybe not exactly that because that's awfully hard to replicate, but that's what you're looking for.
Well, I like that comparison, Andy, because the word around Oklahoma State was they don't lack for – I'm not saying they're going to do exactly what Cody Campbell did at Texas Tech, but they don't lack for people who are ready to spend. Those people who are ready to spend did not want to put good money after bad. And Mike Gundy, someone who vocally rejected the modern concept of the game. There are people who want to get behind the next head coach at Oklahoma State. It'd be funny if Skylar Cassidy, because, Skylar Cassidy did not go to Temple with Casey Keeler because he basically said, I'm not leaving Texas. So we'll see if Stillwater's an exception.
Stillwater's close enough.
Right? Close enough.
I think so.
Yeah, close enough for sure. Two other names that actually haven't been talked about at the G5 level that I think are in this candidate pool. Bob Chesney at JMU. And Jim Mora Jr. What about Jim Mora Jr.? He's 5-2 at
Jim
UConn,
Mora Jr. at UConn has done an incredible job.
It's been wild.
Given the circumstances of that program, they should never win a game. They just beat Boston College. That's his first ACC scalp this season. He had a crazy run of bad luck and terrible calls where they couldn't seem to beat an ACC team last year, but they played great against all of the ones on their schedule. UConn's really good, shockingly good. They're 5-2. Their only losses are overtime losses to Syracuse and Delaware.
He went 9-4 last year, Andy.
Yep.
Fit is a big concern here for Mora. This kind of falls under the Mullen category too, where it's a very defined personality. I think you have to be really careful about
Mora
fitting him
as a recruiter. The stuff about Mullen as a recruiter, Mora doesn't have any of those issues. When Mora was at UCLA, he got dudes. He got so many good players at UCLA. They were always signing a couple of 5 stars a year. I actually think you put Jim Mora, and I don't think there's a geographic restriction on where you can put Jim Mora.
Yeah.
He's coached everywhere.
He's coached everywhere. Right.
I feel like Mullen would be the more versatile option, but yes, he would be interesting. I just don't know what opening right now. Bob Chesney, I want to go back to for a second.
Yeah,
Bob Chesney, you could put
go back to him.
You could put him in Blacksburg.
Yeah.
I think you could put him in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
I think you could put him pretty much anywhere on the map.
If Fran Brown left Syracuse, you could put him in Syracuse.
Yeah,
he's probably not going to get hired by Penn State, but eventually.
So Penn State was the one I wanted to bring up, Ross, because if he had had 2 more years at another tier job up, not a Temple, but not Temple, like you're saying, he would have been the ideal candidate. His background is so specifically Northeastern. I'm trying to remember the name is
Holy Cross.
name of the place he coached at in Newport, Rhode Island. I'm so sorry. Normally
Assumption?
No, it's the one that has a really funny name. It's going to bother me, and I'm going to look it up while you guys talk.
Regina.
Sal Regina.
Salva Regina or something like that.
His background is so specifically Northeastern. He would.
Yeah.
I think Andy Cuse is a no-brainer if Fran Brown gets pulled up.
Or I don't think Boston College has the money to fire Bill O'Brien, but if they,
I was going to ask
that one would make that one will make perfect sense, right? He was in Boston.
He was at Holy Cross.
Yeah, he was in Holy Cross. No, he's from Pennsylvania, but yeah, he worked obviously in Boston for a long time, leading Holy Cross to a bunch of playoffs.
He's in the DMV now, So that Virginia Tech, obviously,
Maryland?
but Maryland. If Mike Loxley keeps having
he keeps winning.
He can't win in October and
dude.
November, man. Can't win in October and November. So
that was the one job that was the one job in the Big Ten when I was doing rounds with agents in July, where they're like, maybe it's Maryland. Otherwise,
he's lost 3 in a row where they blew leads in the fourth quarter. So that's the problem. If this keeps up, they might make a change. His buyout's manageable.
He's got a new athletic director. Yeah, I mean,
I hope they don't, because I think he's done a good job there, and I think he's got him, right there.
And he recruits his bosses very well. He's got that Will Muschamp quality where he's a guy, like every time someone had to fire Will Muschamp, more or less, they'd kind of like Ray Tanner's, like basically on the verge of tears.
They cried. When they had to fire Will Muschamp. Yeah.
Locke has a similar trait, I'm told. So I don't know if that one opens unless
Mike Loxley's just a good dude. Like if you've ever sat down with him, he's a good dude. Like everybody loves working with him.
Everybody loves him. He is. He's like a lovable guy.
Also, people, I think people at Maryland still recognize the significance of his recruiting. Like the fact, they are punching above weight often. And
the dang quarterback is really good.
If I'm Maryland, I'm not saying that this could happen. I'm just saying, hey, there's a change above us in State College. Why not give Locke some space now while there's a little uncertainty above us? Because they obviously fight each other a lot in the DMV. And see what you can do with that while Penn State's in a transition phase.
Maybe so.
Also for Bob Chesney, and this qualifies for another person that we might be talking about, but if North Carolina were to open, and I realize that Michael Lombardi said that they're all in, I don't care.
Sure.
Like Michael Lombardi and Lance Thompson, who
did he give that quote from Riyadh?
SEC heads know who Lance Thompson is.
Chesney feels also a good fit there.
North Carolina,
yes.
Yeah. Also, if NC State were to open.
See, that's the one I have Franklin pegged for, I think. I think that's just the right kind of... Franklin could grab Brent Pry as well, his former DC, who's the fired head coach at Virginia Tech, go into NC State with a strong working knowledge of that league, go out, recruit aggressively to get money spent. It's not there to the North Carolina degree. Obviously, that's the working class literal state school of North Carolina.
But NC State has a legitimate football fan base where if you're winning, you become a tough place to play, and it's a fun environment,
and you're in the research triangle. We did I did a live podcast there in August, and I was shocked at how much money continues to move into that area. I do feel like that's one where it feels like a fixer-upper. Dave Doran has kind of been in that retirement phase so slowly around there, and it just feels like you could late guy for sure. You could shake the dust off that job, I think. And I know NC State fans are sort of historically snake bit. I really do feel like that's a hidden gem.
So NC State's next 3 games: at Pitt, Georgia Tech, at Miami.
Ooh.
Yeah. They're currently 4-3.
Ooh. So they covered the G5 guys. I don't think we have enough time to launch into who's movable at the P4 level, but maybe in the next segment.
Let's do that because we got to talk about games this week that might affect job openings, but also that includes guys who could move to another power conference job, not necessarily get fired, but might decide to leave where they are. We'll talk about that when we come back. But if you would like to watch us in moving living color, turn on your smart TV, look at the home screen, find the Yahoo Sports Network icon. Click it. You will find all of Yahoo Sports' beautiful offerings, including the College Football Inquirer. And also, if you'd like to watch on the go, phone, tablet, doesn't matter. YahooSports.tv. We're available 24/7, 365. You can watch all our shows. You can watch the video version of this podcast. YahooSports.tv. We'll be right back. Talk about the jobs, the games, not the jobs, but also the jobs, the games that could affect the coaching carousel this week. We're back at the College Football Inquirer, and let's talk games this week that it could affect the coaching carousel. There's a couple that might get somebody fired or might get somebody closer to being fired, but I actually want to latch on to the conversation we were just having about who might move to other places. There's one game where I think a certain fan base that just got a coach fired is watching very closely. I think the people in Gainesville, Florida will be watching the Ole Miss Oklahoma game with great interest.
Root on
and
the
probably
Sooners.
hoping that the guy they want loses.
Yeah. Go Sooners. Boomer Sooner there in Oxford, maybe. That's it. This is like, I think we got 2 matchups in the SEC of 6-1 teams where a coach involved in the game, each game, right, is sort of on the hot list to move up within the power conferences, and obviously Lane at Ole Miss against Oklahoma, and Eli with Missouri at Vanderbilt.
Yeah. Also, Clark Lea, even though he's at his alma mater,
Clark Lea. Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Let's not discount that.
Yeah, that has been a huge.
Let's go to the local. Go to the local Nashvilleian.
I've received more texts this week because I did a lot of just like, hey, it's, you guys understand this, like, if it's down the street, you'll default and write a couple extra features about them over the years or whatever. So I have a pretty good relationship at Vanderbilt, and I've received so many texts from our colleagues who are coming in to do the pieces now, or just folks in the industry saying like, hey, I know it's his alma mater, but, and I think he's a CAA client. That I think is the closest thing in college football to being like a Scott Boras client in Major League Baseball, right? You're going to be aggressively positioned. I think it works to the benefit, if I'm Clark Lea, to be involved in conversations about Penn State, for instance. We'll just use them as an example. I think that the only thing that would move him off of West End, provided that Vanderbilt goes through this little dance the next couple months and then says, hey, here's more money. Here's more NIL. We're going to continue to push for facilities, even though we're really landlocked. I think the only one that would really push him out of Nashville would be Notre Dame.
So it would take Marcus Freeman leaving. By the way, Marcus Freeman's going to get called by the people with the best job openings, and I think he's going to say no. But
well, Andy, we didn't
think Brian Kelly would leave Notre Dame either.
Right. We've pushed, well, not pushed, but we have suggested both Penn State and Florida make that call.
You have
to set the sort of agenda, the terms of your coaching search. And again, we talked about it's a perception issue right now for your boosters, for your rank and file fans, to make this look as big as possible before you end up with whoever your choice is. I think Clark Lea would definitely have a pretty significant conversation with Notre Dame, as should probably anybody, especially an ex-DC there. Otherwise, I think we have moved past the point of shock and disbelief with Vanderbilt. This is a really good football team that has been built in a very intelligent way using modern tools. Clark Lea is not ready to leave his alma mater. Clark Lea has dreamed of this his entire life. There's one anecdote. I can't remember. I would love to cite the writer. I can't remember who it was. When he got hired, he talked about how he wanted to use the weight room one day in the offseason as a Vanderbilt football player, and he was kicked out because I think Boise was in town for a bowl game or one of those teams. They basically said like, hey, you're not even allowed in here right now because they only had one common use weight room for all the sports at Vanderbilt. Yes. Yeah. He wants
and they were probably getting some cash to use that weight room from the other team.
Yeah. He wants Vanderbilt to their fundamental perception to change. That's why I don't see him going somewhere where he might get fired in 2 years because of an impatient fan base like Penn State. Justifiably
he does.
impatient.
I mean, he's back home, and when you go there, he's like so comfortable. And golly, that stadium looks really good. Like I haven't been in person, but it's amazing.
Oh, you'll
like,
be shocked, Ross.
I know what they do. I mean, it used to be like high school stadium. You know, last time I've been, I was there.
Yeah, the bones are still there, but
10 years ago.
It captures the noise really, really well. I mean, there's not a lot of coaches who have a legitimate shot at the playoff who are down the street from their childhood home, down the street from their alma mater, their high school. At their alma mater, they played college football. Your parents, your in-laws, and your best friends are all literally about a mile and a half away.
It's also a city that half the country wants to move to.
That too, growing, exploding city in the middle of talented football recruiting, high school recruiting.
2 years ago, when they beat Florida, I think that was 2 years ago. I don't think this is doxing or anything like that. Our kids were on a youth sport team together on a Sunday afternoon, and he walks in because he can walk across the street and do that. And I was like, oh, hey, it's kind of strange to run into an SEC coach on a Sunday afternoon like that after the Florida win. he has a quality of life that most coaches couldn't even fabricate, couldn't dream of. So as long as Vanderbilt doesn't fumble this and continues to invest, and they're really seeing the ROI now, I don't think he's leaving for anybody unless Notre Dame were to come down and really make him a golden offer.
The president or is it the chancellor there? Is it a chancellor or president?
They call him a chancellor, yeah.
Chancellor, yeah, it's a chancellor.
Yep.
Like, I mean, some of his comments, like I think my buddy or columnist Walken visited there maybe a week or two ago.
Vanderbilt alum,
some
Dan
of the
Mullen.
comments,
Vanderbilt alum,
yeah,
Dan
that's
Mullen.
right. Some of the chancellor's comments are like, we know we have to invest and be good, and we're there for the long term. So, and you remember, you guys, I think it was Clark Lea's maybe first year at SEC Media Days where he got up on the stage and then he was mocked for his comments, which was, we want to win the national championship here.
Yeah.
I mean, look, the rest of the schedule isn't easy, but they could get in the playoff.
They can. They got to win this week, but they can.
Yeah, it's a big week. It's a big week, yeah.
He said that, and in his first game, there was a ton of media coverage. It was all the Notre Dame press corps that came down. They got whipped by East Tennessee State in their first game, and that wasn't that long ago. Yeah. This ascension is unlike anything we've seen in college football.
Yeah.
So he's probably not going anywhere. The Lane thing is interesting to me because if they win at Oklahoma this weekend, Ole Miss is probably making the playoff. Like, if you look at the rest of Ole Miss's schedule, it's highly manageable if they go into it with one loss.
Right.
If they can win this game. And I think Brent Venables, the way they responded to the Texas loss from South Carolina, because we were talking last week about, well, what happens if Oklahoma slides? I don't think Oklahoma's going to slide. I don't know if Oklahoma's going to make the playoff, but I don't think they're going to slide into just the abyss. So I think Brent Venables is probably fine now. But if Lane were to lose this game, it does call into question whether Ole Miss can make the playoff. And then it reminds me a little bit of a story Bobby Bowden once told me. So Bobby Bowden was going to play LSU, and there was a period where Florida State played LSU in Baton Rouge 5 years in a row. And Bobby Bowden, have I told this story on this show before? I'm trying to remember.
I don't think so.
Okay. So Bobby Bowden goes to his wife, Ann, because he's been offered the LSU job. Yeah. This is mid-season. Goes to his wife, Ann, and says, here's the deal. If we lose to LSU this weekend, we're going to take the job and we'll be in Baton Rouge next year. If we win, it means we can win here in Tallahassee and we'll keep the Florida State job. Yeah. So they go to Florida State, they go to LSU, they win, and Bobby Bowden stays. And I kind of feel like that's what we're dealing with here with Lane. Like, because I think if we look at it objectively, you could win the national title at Ole Miss. Like, this is not 15 years ago. This is 15 years ago. This would have been a very easy discussion. Oh, he's going to Florida because they have a higher ceiling and they'll pay him more money.
Yes.
Neither of those things are true right now, I don't think.
I don't want to speak for Ross, but we were educated and sort of cultured to this industry at the traditional have-nots. And so I can't argue the logic of what you're saying. And I would objectively say that a lot of these jobs in the SEC, it used to be, visual here. The gap was like this, right? Wide between the haves and the have-nots. That gap has closed considerably in the modern era. I still find it hard to argue against the natural resource advantage of being in the state of Florida for on like a couple different reasons. Everything from if it's enrollment, if it's donors, if it's corporate, if it's third party, if it's just being able to recruit that state. Andy, I said that on Sunday. I still find that to be an advantage over being in the state of Mississippi. That being said, I went back to my alma mater for the first time in 10 years for the Wazoo game. As much as nothing's changed and they still sort of want to cut their nose off despite their face culturally, the core contingent around that football program, they're doing the absolute best they can financially in supporting that staff and supporting the development. And that's something I'd never seen before at a traditional like have-not. I do think you could replicate that at Mississippi State. I do think you could replicate that at South Carolina. We can go through that list. Missouri's doing it right now. They're not a historic have-not because they were in the Big 12, but I think we would rank them in that same category. This is going to come down to Lane being mercurial. And if you guys recall, Lane did everything he could to draw out the drama of the Auburn will he, won't he? What I'm betting on is the Lane Kiffin brand reigning supreme. Like I've kind of winked at all the PR stuff he's done, the documentaries, all this. Lane is going to make this about Lane for as long as humanly possible. I think that's the only certainty here.
Well, and the other thing that remember, Ole Miss can do the Curt Cignetti Indiana thing.
Mm-hmm.
They can do that right now.
Oh, they want to. They think he is.
But it's up to Lane
king
to sign it. And I'll point people back to Jim Harbaugh and the national title season at Michigan. And for a month after the national title, all the Michigan fans are like, well, Warren Manuel is screwing up this extension. No, Warren Manuel didn't screw up the extension. Jim Harbaugh was just never going to sign it. He's going to the NFL.
It was on his desk.
Yeah.
We've seen this so many times, right, with coaches who plan to leave. They're given a contract and they just don't sign, right?
Yeah.
And because it's obvious what's gonna happen. Godfrey, I do think, and it's sort of a trend among us talking heads right now. Wolken wrote a column on it recently, like the parity, and we've talked about it, the parity right now in college football specifically because of NIL and rev share, how the talent is more distributed. Kirby Smart talked about it over the weekend. Mike Elko talked about it. And so I think because of that, I think of places like Ole Miss will be looked at differently by coaches as far as what you can do, what you can't do there. But I thought, Andy, you mentioned like you're comparing this game to like the Bobby Bowden story that you mentioned. To me, that was last week that I saw.
Yeah.
Oh, and you already lost it.
That's the game. Like,
interesting.
That's the game. They had it too. They had it, but of course, in the end, they couldn't put it away. Just like the have-nots have never been able to do on the road against a top 10 team in the conference.
The road is the modifier here, Ross. But in talking to people back in Oxford, the ROI click, this sort of satisfaction of, even though they didn't make the playoff last year, was watching their pass rush disrupt Georgia last year at home in the rain. That was the thing they saw. They were like, oh, this is ROI. This is a return on our investment.
I was at that game, and it felt like a shift in perspective.
Definitely.
Like, Andy, we're one of these teams now.
Andy, I want to point one thing out real fast before we move on.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with everything you said about Brent Venables in Oklahoma because I think he has returned. I think he's sort of righted the ship, to use a cliche. I am a little sort of like mindful of the Palace intrigue at Oklahoma with the new GM, formerly the Senior Bowl director,
Jim Nagy. I will tell you a little bit about that just from talking to some people at Oklahoma. Their relationship is pretty good.
Okay. It seemed weird at first.
No, they have both. And then they understand that. That's the thing. Both of them understand the weirdness of it all. Mm-hmm. But they genuinely want Oklahoma to succeed, both of them. And so they understand how to put that together. And basically, Jim told Brent, I'm never going to force a player on you. You tell me what you like and what you need. We're going to go find that. And it seems like it's working very well so far.
This kind of feels like a Stoopsian year. I don't know. I can't believe I just used the phrase Stoopsian.
What is that?
God, that's horrible. It does feel like a Stoopsian year in that one Bob Stoops won the master of the national championship. What was it, boys? 12-3 or 13-2 in that national championship game over Florida State?
I believe it was 12-2.
Okay. So that's Bob Stoops, the former defensive coordinator at Florida that Andy knows so well. He adopts and adapts to the changing culture of the Big 12 throughout the late 1990s and early into the millennium, in which we're going to have to survive 51-49. This was Brent Venables, career defensive coordinator, coming in and saying, you know what? We need to evolve. We're going to wholesale import an offensive coordinator and his quarterback, and it has paid out better. It's not perfect, but it's better than what they've had in recent years.
Yeah, I mean, they had a bad game against Texas.
Yes.
And Mateer probably came back too fast. Mateer probably came back too fast. So
he did, yeah.
We'll see what happens there. One more in the SEC before we get to our midseason awards. One more in the SEC that may affect the coaching carousel.
Okay, I'm curious if this is the one I want to do.
Texas A&M at LSU.
No, it's not, but that's okay.
Oh, I know which one you want to do.
Okay,
we can talk about both of them.
I think you do. Okay, yeah. Texas A&M and LSU.
I'm with you, Godfrey, because the one that you want to do could directly affect it this week.
Yes. Okay. All right. Let's do A&M first.
Auburn, Arkansas.
Yeah. Actually, I had another one too.
Wow.
Auburn and Arkansas is really well. This is one that I don't know, Andy, if you would like certify as sort of like my de facto editor. But
okay, just tell me the game. And
Stoops.
I just think that if it's really not a great idea right now to leave a P2 job, but if I have a famous last name and they really are committing all that money, how long can I keep this machine at South Carolina going and keep people satisfied? when I could probably walk into a very cushiony situation for a long time and be given the benefit of every doubt in Blacksburg.
Yeah, Alabama, Virginia Tech. Okay, I think or Alabama, South Carolina.
Yeah,
I've just put Virginia Tech already. Yeah. So that's all you really need to say about that one.
Yes, correct.
Let's go to Arkansas because Auburn goes to Arkansas.
The Houston Nut Special.
Yeah, Hugh Freeze has figured out ways to lose games over and over again. Bobby Petrino has them playing very competitively. They lost by 3 in both of the games. Petrino's been the interim coach against much better teams than Auburn. So they did that with Tennessee on the road and then Texas A&M last week at home. If Bobby breaks through this week, it might be it for Hugh Freeze.
It might be it. I think you're right. I was waiting on, actually, we had the statement Sunday.
Yeah.
You know,
where was their statement?
The Wisconsin, and then we had Florida State. You were waiting for that one. Did you see what he did
yesterday? Asking publicly for his 80s
I did see that.
vote. Oh my God.
Yeah, I did see that. Yeah, things are not great there. 4 straight losses, all like kind of the sort of like heart-wrenching.
That could have been more awkward if he'd had an emo haircut with a boombox crying and reading poetry. That was like I have seen.
I mean, I would have gone with John Cusack under Ione Sky's window playing in your eyes. But that's
right. But that's a sentimental moment. What I'm saying, like this is the goth kid with the bangs in his hair, like being like, "Oh, this is my pain." Yeah. I mean, Hugh Freeze can scrape the bottom of a barrel better than anybody. But my God, the working thought around Auburn last week in conversation with folks was that why not try and hang on to that roster and just ride it out a little closer to the Iron Bowl and not give like DJ Durkin the claim to being like a 3-1 interim head coach? Not that they would
DJ Durkin as the interim, by the way, would have that team winning.
Yes. Because DJ Durkin's defense has kept that team in all these games.
Yeah,
this has been an offensive implosion.
Yes,
and Andy, like you rightfully and logically stumped for this offense to take off right before we started the season.
Stupidly.
Well, it's just, but it's been such an easy identifiable problem, and it really falls at the feet of Freeze because doesn't he have like? Is he still doing that thing where he tells everybody he's got? Well, this guy calls the play on first down, and this guy probably the third and 13.
Well, now they're looking at changing quarterbacks.
Right. They are. Ashton Daniels, baby.
Hey, you're done. You're cooked, bro. You're done. Whatever personal animosity I might have for you as a professional, like you need the best situation for them. And this is another theory that's been put out there in the whisper community, is that why not negotiate the buyout to a lump sum that's lower than what you're owed. And because this is, stay with me here.
Time value of money.
It's not that high, right?
It's not that high.
$50 million.
Right.
Yeah.
But the other issue
million.
is Auburn has a sort of reputation around the block now, right? Because we're the buyout kings, we're the crazy cult, all this kind of stuff. Why not just say, hey, Hugh, for personal reasons, for whatever reasons perchance there might be that we don't know about at this particular moment publicly, just say, hey, I've chosen to move on, or I'm resigning, or that's something like that gives... it depends on how much Auburn cares about saving face in this, or just saying like, nah, that guy didn't work out again. We're just going to go for another person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's a big opening, right?
It's a big opening.
That's a
couple
big
minutes.
Opening.
Couple minutes.
Sumrall.
Texas A&M, LSU.
Yeah, down the bayou,
okay,
man.
sorry.
There's no job open here. Nobody's been fired.
No.
Brian Kelly, really good. Only one loss. I think he's 14-1 or 15-1 in Tiger Stadium at night.
At night, yeah.
But the circumstances of this game feel awfully similar to the one, which was LSU has to win this to stay in the playoff hunt. Good team with mobile quarterback is coming to town. Last year, that was Alabama. This year, it's Texas A&M.
Yeah, and that was ugly last year. This is, we talked about it on Sunday a little bit. It's louder than I've heard in a while there. I think probably the loudest since, Ed Orgeron's first season, and we all know how, or last season, and we all know how that ended.
And his first season, technically, Ross.
Yeah, that's
you covered that.
They've got to show. They got to win, right? I mean, this feels like they have to win. If you look at the rest of their schedule, they really need to hold serve at home because they play at Oklahoma, they play at Alabama. If they lose this game, there's a realistic chance that LSU, who has invested a ton of money this past year, finally launched into the NIL sort of stuff, would go 7-5. And at that point, even with a $50+ million buyout, I'm not sure it stops them from making a change if they drop to a 7-5 type year.
And again, they only have 2 losses right now.
Right.
The third loss is where everybody goes off the cliff.
They're done.
Yeah.
This is
and then
the
again, by
job.
Alabama, Oklahoma.
Mm-hmm.
I would, from a distance, characterize the Kelly tenure as getting a ton of equity out of beating Nick Saban and potentially losing all of that equity if Kalen DeBoer comes in and just shows how superior, again, a program like Alabama is to LSU in terms of their functionality and their ability to compete for national championships. I am really curious about this one because if this one fell, we're resetting several of our like cascade trees. I don't know. We got to come up with a term for this. This is going to shift a lot.
But now that James Franklin got fired, nobody's saying the buyout's too much.
No, but
I went into this
they opened the door.
It doesn't matter what Brian Kelly does or doesn't do.
We said that.
Much.
We said that on like maybe our first show.
Yeah, we did, and it just opened it. It completely opened the door in the floodgates. Imagine, guys, if all the ones we're talking about open, right? You already have Penn State and Florida, Florida State, Auburn, LSU. Holy cow! I mean, we're talking about 5 of the top 10 jobs in the country.
Yeah.
Pretty wild.
Yeah. Sounds
There's
like
not
an
enough coaches.
Show.
Andy, we need you. We need you to. I mean,
what, you want me to coach? I can't coach.
Yeah, you got to get out there, man. There's not enough. There's not.
What system would you run?
Shallow.
I know nothing about secondary play whatsoever.
That has not stopped half of the Big 12 coaches the last 20 years.
Guys, we got to turn from the doom and gloom of the coaching carousel to some more celebratory moments. We are going to give out some mid-season awards when we come back. We're back at the College Football Inquirer. We're going to give out some mid-season awards now because everybody is, with the 2 bye weeks, it's a little choppy there, but everybody's basically halfway through the season. So I want to start with a fairly, I don't know if this is going to be super contentious. I think this one might be fairly easy. Who's our mid-season Heisman, guys?
I'll go first if you want. Ty Simpson is the answer. But I saw Diego Pavia embody. I'm not a big Heisman person. I kind of think it's very, very much nonsense because the media votes on it and we're all not that intelligent. But the definition that I live by is that most valuable to their team, and to watch Diego Pavia time and again disrupt and alter like a game's narrative as it happens. I don't know if Vanderbilt is. We're not having. How many freaking segments have we done about Vanderbilt, guys? I don't think any of that's happening without Diego Pavia.
Yeah, agreed.
Y'all,
I will go.
He also
with
ran for the end zone, hugged the ROTC.
Ty Simpson and Diego
hit
Pavia played, and I think that's why.
I know.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Ty Simpson and Ty Simpson objectively is just better right now.
Yeah. No, that's the answer.
TDs, 1 pick. Almost 2,000 yards already.
That's the answer. I just said I was trying to be, contrarian.
No, I like it though. That's good.
Yeah.
But the thing is, Godfrey, you're not wrong. And also, there's a lot of golf left. Like, if Ty Simpson has a couple bad games and Diego Pavia, let's say Diego Pavia beats Texas, he beats Missouri this weekend and then beats Texas, all of a sudden, he's going to be hot because you can really catch fire in late October, early November. In a Heisman race, you can have those moments, and then the zeitgeist sort of just moves in your direction. Though I think if Ty Simpson keeps playing like he has, he's gonna win it. But I like the idea of this duel between these 2 quarterbacks. Julian Sayin, I think, is going to have a say in it. Yeah. Sorry, that was terrible.
That's very good. Great, Andy. Good job.
But because Carnell Tate and Jeremiah Smith are playing so well, you can't really just pull one of them out. And so, if I were to give the high or the MVP to an Ohio State player this year, I might go Arvell Reese on the defense, but I don't think my fellow Heisman voters are going to recognize his greatness.
So it's a big problem with the Heisman. They only pay attention to one side of the ball.
Yeah. Yep. One our producer TJ came with this category, and I love it.
Yeah, this is hard.
Team that can be good with better NIL. And it kind of ties into the conversation we had about Wisconsin. Now, obviously, Wisconsin is awful. Wisconsin may go 2-10. So they're going to try to provide more resources for Luke Fickell so that maybe they can get up into competitive range. I think the next step for them is try to get to 7-5. We're talking about who can be really good if they say, you know what, we're pushing in, kind of like what Texas Tech did. So is there somebody in the Big 12 that can do that? Is there somebody in the ACC that can do that? I think that would be an interesting conversation.
So that's where I went in the break, Andy, is I was pulling together a couple schools. I think you could have a more discernible impact in the short term if a magical fairy came in and dropped a bigger bag on you and like right now, and you could somehow go pay a player, bring on roster in October. I'm going to go with Arizona State because I think Kenny Dillingham has been really, really effective in his.
We're thinking alike, Godfrey.
Oh, yeah, so if you gave them,
hold on, let me find another one. I'll find another one.
Well, what you're saying is if you gave them a tech billionaire or whatever kind of billionaire you want to fund them, that they could be at the high. I mean, they just beat the Texas Tech really expensive roster.
I don't want to do this to Arizona State, but I'm gonna because it's the time of year and this is how we pay our bills. Kenny Dillingham should be a higher candidate at some of these open jobs. And I know Florida has a certain blue-bloodedness about it compared to like FSU in the state. Kenny Dillingham obviously has an FSU connection. This man knows how to implement the modern strategy extremely well. He is the definition, and I say this in the most positive way possible, of the modern player's coach. And I think that's going to become way more important as we move forward in whatever this new landscape is.
Which is why Kenny Dillingham, even though he's at his alma mater, is going to get a lot of buzz.
Oh, yeah.
For these job openings.
He should. I don't know what this means. I don't know if Arizona State steps up and makes whatever their version of a Texas Tech commitment is, guys. But this is a guy I would have shortlisted. Yeah. And if you put more money on him now, y'all, Arizona State keeps winning games they really shouldn't be winning. And that includes the Big 12 championship last year, taking Texas to the brink in the playoff. What they did last week to upset the balance of power in their conference again. They have a huge game against Houston this week. You just can't really count these guys out. And they're one bad play in the secondary. So there you go, Andy. You could have coached that secondary better against Mississippi State from being a one-loss team right now.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. I think the Sun Devils are a good one.
I vamped so you can pick another one.
Will sort of give them a little extra pop. So I'm on the fly here. I'm going to go down to the lovely G5, G6 rank actually, and say South Florida.
Ooh,
and I would say because if you gave Alex Golesh in that with that place, they're building a new stadium. They're in Florida. They're in a great area for talent and for desirability to live and all that. I think that if you gave him more money, which they plan on doing, I believe, and they have done the last couple of years, but if you gave him a little more bag, I think that they're not just beating Floridas of the world. Maybe they're beating Miami's.
Okay, all right. I'm going to go into the power conferences and just latch on to what Godfrey just said about Vanderbilt, because Clark Lea is going to be pursued for some of these job openings. And for reasons that you just laid out, he may not really want to go, but you would obviously use all that interest and that leverage to get more of what you want at Vanderbilt. And while Vanderbilt is in the SEC and they've clearly done a good job with NIL, I'm sure they're not optimized to the level of a Georgia or an Alabama or a Tennessee when it comes to that.
Definitely.
Maybe they get a little closer to that. They're playing this well now. Imagine if they get more optimized on the NIL front or on the player compensation front. It would be fascinating to watch.
The honorable mention I wanted to throw out, Andy, we're watching teams change their priorities in real time. It's actually funny. My alma mater mentioned this. The athletic director, Keith Carter, talked about we know we need to do X, Y, and Z in our stadium. It's just not on the books anymore. We are paying players.
Keith Carter is also it's funny because the Florida fans want to steal Keith Carter's coach.
Yeah.
The Florida fans worship Keith Carter because he said, we're going to stop doing this stupid stadium renovation because the best way to make your stadium better is put better players in it.
Yeah.
So do you know where I'm going? Do you know where I'm going with this?
Oh, go ahead.
The Power 2 team that is putting a hell of a lot of money right now in a Union City into a brand new stadium and almost in spite of it have a 5-2 football team right now. With all the controversy that Northwestern has undergone in the last couple of years, could you imagine if you paid for a freaking roster? They are 5-2 in spite of every challenge. I think that's
the discussion that's being had now because they had questions about whether David Braun's the guy.
Yeah.
I think David Braun's the guy. I think you just need to give David Braun the resources.
We probably all heard right before the season that was one up. yep, that's probably going to open. And now it's like, ooh, maybe not. Yeah.
No, David Braun has done a tremendous job.
It has been impressive. Yeah.
Tremendous job. One more question, guys.
Mm-hmm.
Give me, as of today, your teams that will be playing in the semifinals in the college football playoff. The Final Four, as it were. We're going to do a basketball thing.
Yeah. To me, there's two that are kind of obvious. Ohio State and Alabama. To me, right? Yeah. Those are like the easy.
Those two were going to be on my list.
So let's just go ahead and pick two teams each because all of us have those teams in the Final Four. Okay?
I've got a little bit of a surprise.
What you got?
I think the Irish are going to run the table again for a second straight year.
Damn it, that was mine.
Yeah, I think Notre Dame is in the Final Four again after losing early, and they're going to run it and get to the Final Four. And then my last team, I've been going back and forth. But I'm gonna settle with the Hoosiers and say that they get there.
I think the Hoosiers have a good chance, but the one I was gonna say out of the Big Ten that isn't Ohio State that could make the Final Four, I think the Oregon Ducks have an opposite experience to last year.
Okay.
Last year they go undefeated in the regular season, lay an egg. Sorry for the stupid pun again. In the Rose Bowl.
You didn't know that was coming. I could tell.
I didn't even. As soon as I said lay in, and I'm like, oh, come on. So, but they have a young quarterback who's going to get better as the season goes on. Mm-hmm. I think maybe we see a better version of Oregon in the playoff than the version we saw losing to Indiana. And this team is loaded from a roster standpoint. So I think Oregon can make the Final Four. Ross, I was going to say Alabama, Ohio State, Notre Dame, and Oregon.
That's what I was going to say too. So with my with my two spots, then I'm going to go into hipster wish fulfillment, and I'm going to pick the Ramblin' Wreck of Georgia Tech.
Ooh,
just because I would like to see that, right? Brent Key,
that'd be pretty fun.
Also a guy that people are having conversations about right now.
Mm-hmm.
And then just to be fun, what's a contrarian pick that I could legitimately stand by? You know what? I'm actually going to reverse. I'm going to say it's Texas A&M. All right, just because I've really enjoyed watching Marcel Reed in that offense. But in actuality, for the record, we all agree that it is Ohio State, Alabama, Oregon, and Notre Dame, right?
Yeah. But the relentless competence of Mike Elko, I don't think we should discount. I'm glad you brought that up.
And in the playoff, the two right behind that I would also probably agree with would be the Aggies, which I picked, and then Indiana as well. I think this is the year that Indiana goes to the playoff and actually does something.
Yeah. Speaking of relentless competence,
I mean, damn, dude. Yeah, like you can't ask for much more right now in Bloomington.
It's amazing. This has been a great season. We got a lot more games to talk about on Thursday. I want to talk about Michigan and Michigan State because the state of that rivalry versus where it was 10 years ago is absolutely fascinating. And then you've got Sharon Moore coming off his best game. You've got Jonathan Smith basically fighting for his job. Lots to talk about there. This just gets more interesting as we go this college football season. And we'll talk to you guys on Thursday.